Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Zokei Mura F-4C Phantom that I'll be doing as one of Robin Olds' aeroplanes. Obviously, with the new model, we're going to start off in the cockpit, but you'll also see me doing a little bit in the nose wheel bays as well. And everything started off with a base coat. It was a light grey. I honestly can't remember what I did use for the grey, but the wheel wells was white. Both were MRP actually. The gear bays, the white was painted first on the cockpit sides, and then the floor was actually used as a mask. And then I went in there with the MRP grey. I think it might have been 270 FS2. What was it? 250. I can't remember, to be honest. But it was lightened anyway to try and match with the Quinta Studios grey on the instrument panels. Not forgetting the detail fuselage sides, which actually you don't get in the main kit. I mixed yellow and black to use this zinc chromate colour, and that was sprayed over some silver and then chipped away using the hairspray technique. I wanted a wear pattern where the silver of the cockpit floor was revealed, where the aircrew's boots would rub with the heel. But quite often when you see in aeroplanes that wear pattern, you see some of the primer just around the edge, or maybe it hasn't in certain areas worn through all the way down to the metal. So that's what I was trying to achieve. Over the top was more grey, so that had hairspray put down first, then the grey over the top, and then went in with the water and chipped it back and worn it away. I didn't want a sort of an actual sort of chipped pattern, more a sort of a wear pattern, which I think I achieved, as you can see there, and you can just about see some of the primer showing through. This is the pilot's sort of gubbins, and again you can see traces of the primer coat. Now for an oil wash, and I thought I'd give these things a go. So pre-mixed oil washes. This is the sort of light grey colour. Don't want too much contrast against the white, and actually this was quite a nice tone, and it worked very well. So I'll consider using this stuff again in the future. It's really quite good. Flows nicely mixed. You have to give it a real good shake before you use it, but yeah, good stuff. So that was just put in with the brush. Capillary action is your friend. And then it was blended away the excess with a cotton bud, and in some areas, just a few, a brush moistened in thinner. But the MRP, it's very resilient. It's a very nice satin sheen. It's somewhere between gloss and satin, and it means it's easy to rub it away. Darker tone here. This is for the grey, and same again, just touching it in places using the capillary action just to highlight some of that raised detail. A lot of this isn't going to be seen. Here's one of the rear bulkheads, and it had some really fine raised rivets on there. So the combud is the ideal tool there, just to go in and just polish it off the high bits, and then do a little bit of blending, and quite a nice result. Same again on the pilot's footwell. This had some nice raised detail on it as well, and that wash just makes it pop out. Time to get some glow out now. The fit of everything is really good. It's really nicely detailed, and everything just sort of pops into place. There's the rudder pedals going in, and just small amounts of glue required. Now I did find these cockpit sides tended to want to spring apart, so it was held in place just to let the glue grab. And if you don't do this, you will have problems trying to fit the fuselage halves together. A little bit of a dry brush for some of the raised details. This was from the ammo dry brushing paints, which are absolutely brilliant, I have to say. I know I'm a bit of an ammo fanboy, but the way that they've made these acrylic paints dry brushable is just brilliant. So the pilot's bulkhead, that just glues into place. You can see there I've actually picked out that sort of box on the left in black. And this glue from Ammo of MiG, that brush applicator is brilliant when you're gluing in pre-painted parts, because it just minimises the risk of damage to the paintwork. These are the seat rails going in for the rear cockpit, and you can see the bulkhead just clicks into place. It's easier doing it that way round because it is a very tight fit with those with that sort of rail. So it's easier to glue that in first. And then once you've applied the glue, you can just lead a bit of a gentle squeeze and some more glue on the bottom just to make sure that sort of seat rail isn't going to go anywhere. And just the tiniest dab at the top, just to hold that in place. Now for the Quinta set, the 3D printed instruments. This is one of the side consoles, one of the pilot's ones. The knobs and things were removed initially with a knife and then in with the sanding stick just to take off the rest. The Quinta set is multi-part, so study the instructions very carefully. They were just a tiny bit of water on the back, and in a few seconds you can just release the parts. And then I actually used some watered down ammo ultra glue, just applied with a micro brush, and just stick it into place. The set is very comprehensive, even some of the levers are supplied, and it's really cool because they're printed on both sides. How they do it, I really don't know. And there's the finished cockpit, or the pilot's panel. There's me just applying the glue. Like I say, it's the watered down ultra glue. Sorry about the focus there, the camera was playing up a little bit. And then just making sure the glue is on the edges and just using the tweezers just to get it into position, and then giving a little squeeze. That'll get rid of any sort of air bubbles, air pockets. You can see a little bit of glue splurges out. It's easily removed. You can use super glue, but I prefer using the acrylic sort of glues. It just gives you a little bit more time just to get things into the right place. Side consoles for the guy in the back, the Wizzo, and the front consoles. And you see there I've already done the left hand one. Don't need too much glue, to be honest. And then you see me there just making sure I've got some glue just on the ends, because otherwise there is a tendency that they can curl up. Not a problem when using the Red Fox stuff. In some places I did, I've just got something caught underneath it there. In some places I did have to drill out some holes. It's very clear in the instructions where to do that. That's to take things like throttles and control sticks and what have you. A little bit more pressure on these and you can see that the glue's splurging out from the sides there, and we'll just remove that with a damp brush. And you can just see how effective these 3D printed things are. Way better than photo etch, which is a little bit 3D but pretty flat, but these are just superb. Not forgetting some circuit breakers. Now there was a circuit panel in the back seat on the right hand side which does have some decals, but looking at pictures they were black, so I just used the kit parts. Now I shouldn't have done this. I got a little bit carried away, putting the Rios, not Rio, that's Navy isn't it, the Wizzos, sorry, instrument panel in. I'll fix that in a second. Here are the throttles, back at idle. And this is why I shouldn't have glued that panel in. So you can see there it's been drilled out and painted, the backside painted black, but I had to prise it off because actually we need to glue that to the cockpit sills and then the whole lot gets glued into place. This is a bit of a fiddle, but it fits pretty good. It's just got to make sure everything lines up and the glue, when the glue sets, it's all in the right place, because it's easy to get something just slightly off and then you will have problems when you come to try and fit that to the cockpit. Sorry, the fuselage hull, sorry. And there we are, there is the finished cockpit, highly detailed, really lifted by the Quinta Studio sets, I think you'll agree. Now for the characteristic wiring, none of this is included. The back of the instruments are solid, so they were drilled out, and then just some lead wire was stuck in places. Having a look at some of the photos, some of the wiring goes into the top of that combing thing, and some of it just disappears down the back of the pilot's seat. I did use some Anes connectors and things which were drilled out just to give a little bit more of a sort of a 3D effect and a little bit more detail. And once the lead wire was in place, it was out with the paintbrush, and initially actually I used some VMS metal primer, which was really great stuff. I have had paint flaking off wire before, but yeah, no such trouble with using the VMS stuff, so that's highly recommended. And then after that it was just painted in Vallejo black. Now some of the wires are moulded in, they're not that distinct. I painted that sort of the sills and everything in black, but with literally just the tiniest drop of white, and then I just picked out some of those moulded in wires with that acrylic black paint just to try and make it stand out a little bit more. And here I am using the tweezers now. Once the paint's dry, we're just going to go ahead and glue in these wires. Using lead wire is it makes it much easier to sort of conform and everything, but it is very soft. That is the downside, but it does work very nicely. You see that just sort of goes down the side of the seat rails there, and they will disappear somewhere. With the seat in place, you're not going to see the ends of that. And there is the finished wiring, really quite busy. You can see there the hole for the the supporting jack for the front of canopy and made sure that was left clear. Now the seats, these are Edward Brassing seats. So they were primed, then painted with MRP black, and then in with MRP white, I went in and I just picked out the highlights on the cushions. Same for the parachute pack, which actually sits behind the guy's sort of shoulders and head. And then using figure painting techniques, just very thinned layers of acrylic. This is using Amber of MIG. I can't remember what green it was, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to be tinted with white and yellow for the highlights and black for the lowlights. You can see already after a few layers how the effect is just built up over time. Everything's blended in together. It's important to keep the paint quite wet and just keep it very thin, and that way you can blend it all in together. If you start struggling, if it's drying out, you're getting tide marks and things, you can use a little bit of acrylic thinner just to help blend things in. And you can see how effective it is there on the top bit. And using yellow is important, actually, because white can wash it out. Using yellow just keeps the greeniness of it. Here I'm just taking care of the overspray with some satin black. Again, acrylic. And then back in with the dry brush. I actually used some of the mid-grey and then mixed it in with a bit of ammo black because I didn't want it looking too much of a contrast. Just enough to highlight all that beautiful raised detail. Now for the seats, I had bought some of the Edward photo etch seat belts, but actually they're really quite stiff, and Quinta provide them on their set. So I thought I'd give them a go, and you can see how easy it is to conform. And I was really pleased with how easy it was to use those. There's the shoulder harness. These are the support straps. The reason the shoulder harness is so short is because in the American system you actually wear the harness and then clip into the risers above your shoulder. The British system with the QRF means you get full length harnesses. You can see the ejection pull handle at the front as well. This is photo etched. This is from the Edward set. That will be the man sep handle, the manual separation handle that you'll pull if there's a problem. What's not included are the leg restraints. So this is lead wire. So I drilled a hole in the front of the seat, glued in the lead wire, and then painted it blue. These, what these do is wrap through a little ring in your leg restraint garters in your lower legs and then click into the seat, and as you go up the rail it pulls your legs in to stop flail injuries. You see a little silver connector on the end there, and the pull handle on the top, that's from Quinta as well. And that's it for this episode. So here's some final shots of the seats and a couple of shots of the finished cockpit itself. The seats aren't glued here, they're just put in place just so you can see the full effect. Really highly detailed, I think you'll agree. So as I said, that's into part 2. So what's coming up in part 3 is the airframe build. I do a bit of a dotty wash. This is in the wheel wells. The dreaded spine insert, and you can see there the full length intakes. I wonder how well it all goes together. So join me on the next episode for for the full airframe build. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.